I'm currently converting this two-wheel drive European hatchback into an all-wheel drive 400 horsepower monster. I've already shortened and modified the back axle, as well as cutting the entire boot floor out and fitting parts from lots of different cars, such as a Transit wheel arch and Nissan Silvia suspension. But as the title suggests, I've cocked up. The axle is too high. So before I do anything else, I need to lower this down. So initially I've bought some spacers to space it down the right amount. I think in future though, I might remake the cross member slightly. Who knows? But for now, we're going to use the spacers. But believe it or not, before I start doing any of that, I want to do something which might seem completely irrelevant, and that is refurbish the wheels. Now the wheels are in a pretty poor state, been blasted, and yeah, they're just not very good. The blasting's really pitted the wheels, so I need to spend quite a lot of time rubbing them down and making them as good as I can. Now the reason I'm doing this now and not later is the tyre size is quite a lot bigger than most people run on Novas, and I want to make sure it's going to fit. I'm pretty confident they will, or I'm pretty confident I can make them fit, but I just want to have them for peace of mind, so when I'm mocking it all up, I know they fit. So yeah, I could just get the tyres fitted. However, I thought there's no point in doing a job twice, so I might as well get the wheels painted first and then fit the tyres and then they're done. Obviously, I'm going to have to keep them safe, but I would do anyway. So like most things, I like to do as much as possible in-house, which is why I've decided to refurb these myself. Yes, I could have paid someone. If I'm honest, these took me 8 hours to do in total, which is a very long time, and it probably would have been cheaper to send them somewhere else, but hey ho, that's life. I'd rather do it myself. They've come out pretty good overall, I think. Let me know what you think in the comments. Right, now the wheels are done, back on with the axle. So we're going to lower this down. So when I first fitted the axle, I was very conscious of mounting it as high as possible so I could have the maximum amount of suspension travel but still have it really low. Obviously I did that, but I did it a bit too well. I didn't consider the pop shaft angle. Now a couple of people pointed this out, and yes, I made a massive mistake. So that's why I'm fitting these spacers, which will hopefully eliminate that, and in the future I'll make something a little bit better. So I'm much happier with the axle configuration now. Obviously being a bit lower, it seems to fit better. So the next job, we're going to make a chassis leg that goes from this back panel to the front and incorporates this turret and inner wing. But we're going to do it in sections to try and make it as simple as possible. So the first bit is to make a bit of chassis leg that goes from here to here and box this in. Nice and simple. So I've just taped this tyre lever in here just to make sure the spacing is even, because obviously if it does flex around a little bit, then I can accurately measure across and fill it in. So you've probably noticed, but I use all the basic tools to do a lot of my work. So this is just a normal tape measure, normal set square and a Sharpie and an angle grinder. I don't have anything too fancy, but I find you get really good results and you don't need all this fancy specialist equipment. My advice, if you're going to do anything like this, is do little bits at a time, try and plan everything the best you can in your head or on paper even better, and just enjoy yourself. And like I say, don't do too much at once because you might overwhelm yourself. Right, now the rear of the chassis leg's in, I'm going to fill this section in here. So I'm going to put the inner arch back in, I'm going to make a template. Don't worry about this rot, that's getting removed at some point. Obviously I'm going to replace the whole quarter panel, so don't worry about that, but I need to make it good from there to here, and that's going to box it all in and make it nice and strong. I clamp the arch back in, and then I use a bit of cardboard and a Sharpie to design and make my template. Once I'm happy with the fit, I transfer the design onto a sheet of steel and then cut it out with a grinder and clean it all up with a flat disc. So now we just need to fold these edges over here, and that's going to tack up nicely. Again, other than having a decent welder and some very basic metalwork tools, I don't have anything big. So when it comes to folding steel, I tend just to use a vise. It works quite well if you're careful. Beautiful. Excuse the sweat, it's very hot in here. This is going to get plug welded on, which is essentially drill a load of holes in and weld through. A little bit like a spot weld. It looks a bit like a spot weld once it's done. It's kind of a factory approved repair method. And for this kind of application, I think that's perfect. Now to drill the holes, I'm just using a jugular, which is like a little punch. And it basically just stamps a hole through it. Show you. Just like so. It's a bit easier than drilling it, it's a little bit quicker. And on thin metal like this, it works really well. Now that all the holes are pressed in, it's finally time to weld on the arch. So I literally just weld through on a fairly low heat setting
into the metal behind it and then clean it all back with a grinder.
So there you go, that's the rear section welded on, clean back, and I put a bit of primer on the loose metal. A little bit of filler here and there, it's going to look great, and obviously I'm going to put some seam seal around it all. So yeah, just to look them after, very factory looking, nice and strong, perfect. Right, let's continue with the front arch. And for those that are interested, the tyres are now being fitted. Now these are 205, 45, 16 Uniroyal Rain Sport 5s, and from experience a really good tyre in the wet and in the dry. Obviously this is mainly going to be a dry car, but they've got really good grip and they're not too badly priced. Right, now the wheels on, I've just taken the spring off, so it's just got the damper, just to show you what we're working with at the minute. So this is set relatively low, I guess, but that's all the way down, and that is the suspension all the way up. So obviously I wouldn't be driving it there, but I can still raise the bottom coilover mount another 2 or 3 inches. So in theory, I can have it running like that all the time, and I've still got plenty of space at the top of the wheel arch to have the wheel probably even here, which obviously not going to do. That just demonstrates how much room we've got now compared to a standard vehicle. Now bearing in mind these are 205, not 195s, these are 205, so they're much wider than standard. Yeah, really chuffed with that. So I've just cut out even more of my mint over SR. Haters gonna hate. I've cut this little bit of box section, which is going to be a chassis leg from here, and it's going to join up about here. So what I'm planning on doing is just tack it into place. I'll get it as level as I can, square as I can, tack it all in. Then this bit here where the cross member is, I'm going to box all that in with some 2mm. I'm also going to box this in just to make it nice and strong. It'll be far stronger than original, and it's not going to be that heavy, to be fair. So let's start mocking things up and tacking things into place. So when I first started doing YouTube, I aimed to get a video out every week. Now more recently, it's been every 2 weeks. I've tried to get better quality videos out with more content, but unfortunately, because of that, it's every 2 weeks. Now you've got to remember, I work full time and I also have a family. So I don't get loads of time in the garage, but I do try and make you guys some great quality content. So if you do enjoy it, please just hit the subscribe button and support the channel. Now, talking about family, I'm about to go on paternity leave for the second time. My wife is expecting our second child imminently. So my video rate might drop down a little bit. Obviously, you've got to remember, family comes first. This is just a hobby. With that being said, this Nova is still going to be completed and it's going to be amazing, but you'll have to bear with me for a little bit, guys. Also, in the near distant future, when this is done, I do plan on doing a very, very nice 911 build, which I'm going to reveal more about soon. Right, there we go. That is tacked into place. Now, I have put a slope on the chassis leg. Reason I've done that is because then it lines up with this better. I want to keep the original seat brackets, the front ones. I'm going to try and make some custom rear seats. I know the original ones aren't going to fit anywhere near, but I'm just going to try and make some just to make the car a little bit more practical. It might not work, but it's worth a go. So, I'm pretty happy with that. Next thing I need to do is weld all this into place properly. I'm going to clean up the weld behind this and just start boxing it all in, I think. Again, like I did on the back, I think I'm going to use a little bit 2mm plate here. Just fill that bit in. And yeah, we'll go from there. So it's the next day. Chassis legs all welded up nicely. My plan is to fill this section in here, fill this section down here, and hopefully get the arch on. So to do this, I start by fitting the arch as a reference point, and I just clamp this into place. I'm going to use a piece of cardboard and a permanent marker to start making a template. Once I'm happy with the shape, I cut it all out and then I transfer that cardboard template to steel. So again, like a lot of the other stuff I've done, I've been using 2mm plate. Now it's a little bit more heavy duty than it needs to be, but at least I know it's going to be nice and strong and it's a lot easier to weld. So once the plate is cut and I'm happy with it, I fit all the rest of the car, just clean a few edges up, make things fit a bit better, and then we can start welding it on. So my advice when welding any kind of sheet metal is to tack it all into place first, try and tack every corner, make sure everything lines up, and then start buzzing it up properly. Don't just go straight away into it with the buzz gun, because you will warp it all and it won't fit very well. So I weld the top side, grind it all flat, and then I put a couple of stitches on the other side just for a bit of extra strength. And then, unfortunately, we've run out of welding wire. So it's been a couple of days, but we have good news. The welding wire has now arrived. This now needs fitting, and I've made a cardboard template, which kind of goes in here.
like so, and he's going to fill that section in nicely, make it nice and strong. And after that's made out of steel, I'm going to put a piece in here all the way across, tie all this in and make it nice and strong. So before I cut out the steel, clean up the area, I'm going to weld everything too. Now I use a little belt sander for this. Now this is just an electric one. I think the 13mm wide belts, they are really good, but the belts don't last very long. The 20mm ones you use in a body shop are much better, but you only seem to find them air operated. Now I don't have a big compressor. So I cut the steel out and then transfer it to the vise to fold it. Now I don't have a fancy steel folder. I wish I did, but the vise does work quite well for smaller items, especially if you use a hammer to assist you. I test fit it, and as you can see, it fits perfectly. So I key it up with some sandpaper and then prime the back to stop it getting rusty. And then again, I put it back on, tack it into place, and then start welding it up properly. Now this is going to be really strong. It's really boxing the sill in nicely, and it's going to add loads of strength to the rear end of the car once it's all finished. Finally, back onto the rear arch. Now, the transit arch is very thin and it has loads of pressed swages in to make it a little bit stronger. Now, one of them is unfortunately right in the way, so what I do is I panel beat it out the best I can using some basic tools, a couple of hammers and a bit of steel, make it as flat as possible. Doing this obviously makes the metal a little bit longer because you're stretching it. So then I retrim it to shape. I then cut a sliver of 2mm off and fold it to the right shape of the arch, so I can weld it onto the turret, and then the transit arch will spot weld to that. I hope that makes sense. So that's it all done, dressed back and primed. So there we go, that is the rear chassis leg done on the near side. Now I still need to make a cross member that goes over to the other side. However, I do need to build the other side up first. Can't do that today. I also need to make an infill panel to go underneath to connect the cross member to the floor here. Again, I can't do that today because I need to do the other side. So we'll see, the arch hasn't been welded on yet. That's not going to take long to spot weld that on. So for today, we're going to wrap the video up, I think. Now, like I said earlier, please bear with me. We are expecting our second child any day. So videos may be a little bit slow for the next few months, but I'm going to try my best. But obviously, family comes first, like I said earlier. So if you enjoyed the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want, share with your friends. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for more and see you later. Bye-bye.